and for those of you who have been keeping up with the news, Jimmy Butler is in a lot of trade rumors. He is a native of Tomball, Texas, which those of you who aren't familiar is in the Houston metro area. So the Rockets are a team that he's linked to. He's also been linked to the Warriors, the Mavericks, also in Texas, obviously, and the Phoenix Suns. If for those of you who want to maybe look into it, his hair, he's dyed his hair yellow. He's dyed his hair red. He's dyed his hair blue. And as he gets prepared to play the Raptors tonight, his hair is orange. So people are saying that he's identifying the teams that he wants to play for by the color of his hair. His agent is telling Shams Charania that, hey, I'm actually not putting this stuff out there. Shams is going on ESPN saying, I'm standing by everything I report 1,000%. So if you haven't been following the Jimmy Butler trade saga, it's been a lot. And I think that based on what we're saying right now, it's not ending anytime soon. Obviously, it's rooted in Jimmy Butler having a player option going into next year. He could enter free agency. No traction on a extension with the Heat. Do you think that Jimmy finishes this season in a Miami Heat uniform? What do you make of all this trade chatter with Jimmy?
I do think it's like a lot of smoke right now.
Yeah.
Like, yes, like where there's smoke, there's fire. And I do think that, like, even though a lot of people are jumping on Shams, like, I do think that he was right in his reporting.
Yeah.
Someone had brought up the point that, like, last year when Jimmy had like sprained his MCL in the playoffs,
Yeah.
and Shams reported that he had a sprained MCL in the playoffs, and then his agent came out and was like, where does he get this information? This is not true.
Yeah.
And then literally the next day he was diagnosed with a sprained MCL.
Yeah.
So I think it's more so like his agent is upset that it didn't come out on his terms. Right. He doesn't control the narrative. So, like, I mean, and then you have Jimmy who's leaning into it because, you know, he loves to troll in the first place. So he's like doing the whole hair color thing. And like, I kind of respected him also kind of like, I roll my eyes at it, but like, that's who he is. And that's part of the reason why we love Jimmy for, you know, who he is. But like, I hope that, I don't hope that he leaves Miami because like, he is the reason that Miami is always like that, like kind of like lurking in the shadows, dangerous team. And like, that's what makes them so special. And that's why they've been able to go on 2 NBA finals runs in the last 5 years. But like, there is also part of me that, as we were just talking about the Rockets and how they don't know where that offense is coming from night in and night out, like Jimmy Butler, if his job is to go out there and score the ball, like he's going to be able to give you 20 plus points a night. And that could be the guy that the Rockets are looking for to take them over the hump and be as good as these other teams in the Western Conference. So, you know, I would love to see him go there. I don't know if he makes as much sense. I mean, obviously, like he's a type of player who could fit in a lot of different places stylistically, personality wise is another thing because he's an alpha dog. Like that's just who he is. But like, you know, like Phoenix, for example, like, do they really need another guy who like likes to have the ball in his hands and wants to be a scorer and things like that? Like probably not, but they could use his defense. You know, what's left of his defense at this point in his career. You know, Dallas, like that's another team that like, yeah, obviously if you put him around like Luka and Kyrie, like he's going to be awesome. And he can be a low maintenance productive player in terms of like how much he needs the ball in his hands to make an impact. But at the same time, like I think he wants the ball in his hands a little bit more. So that's why like I gravitate a little bit more towards the Houston destination where he could still be the version of Jimmy Butler that he is on the Heat right now that gets to pass and play, make and score, but also be a defender and do all these different things and bring another level of toughness and attitude to that team that already has a lot of that. And I feel like he's a player that Ime Udoka would love to coach.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Like honestly, in some ways, another part of it too, right? Phoenix's hands are tied because of like their financial conversation, like or financial responsibilities to Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. I was reading before we got on here because of where they are as far as like a luxury tax apron team. They can't. It has to be 1-for-1, so they're not trading Devin Booker or Kevin Durant. So it would have to be Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler. Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause, so they'd have to get a third team involved or something like that. There's a lot of hoops to jump through with the Suns. And I also think the Suns, I read that they're content with where they are. I think they're 11-2 when Kevin Durant suits up. And he's injured again right now, but like they're interested in seeing how that works out. The Rockets make sense. We talked about how deep they are, but they can't play everybody. They could consolidate their talent, bring him in. They're ahead of schedule where they are. That's a big area of need. And I do think that if he, comes in, I think he has the same personality as their head coach. I think that Fred VanVleet could kind of be a buffer between Jimmy and the young guys there. I think, his familiarity with Kyle Lowry, his familiarity with Kawhi, who I think does have some of that personality. He just isn't as loud about it. I think that could help him be that guy for Jimmy and the young guys who maybe could be a little intimidated from that as well. But, we didn't talk about the Warriors either. The Warriors could make something happen. I think the Warriors are looking to make something happen based on where they are right now. And I think they do seem very intent on making the most of what's left of Steph Curry's prime. He will be 37, in the spring. Jimmy is 35. So like, these aren't young guys we're talking about. I don't know if they should necessarily mortgage their future, but at the same time, what is their future? Like, maybe you just go all in because you have a generational player in Steph Curry, and then you'll deal with whatever happens later. But it's interesting to hear them involved with Jimmy Butler and with LeBron James.
Jimmy is one that, like, he would be a really good fit for Golden State because they could use another guy who can create his own shot. Like, Kuminga's trying to do that, but it's not really like, he's still like pretty raw and toolsy. Like, he's not, the established scorer that Jimmy could be for that team. I think he'd be a better fit there than, again, like somewhere like Phoenix or something like that. But like, the Warriors also, because like Steph is who he is, and Draymond is still, he's like point forward, and they got shooters around with like Buddy Hield and stuff. Like, they are a team to me who, like, you and I were talking about it before we even hopped on here. Like, there are other like bottom of the barrel teams that are trying to package their useful players right now for future assets. And like, the Warriors are a team that interests me. And I saw they popped up in trade rumors with like the Nets trio of Dennis Schroeder, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Cam Johnson. Like, to me, like, the Jimmy Butler, if you can get Jimmy Butler, go ahead, get Jimmy Butler. Like, he's awesome. He's going to fit in really well. But like, I really feel like the Warriors are a team that would benefit more from, like, they could use the depth, and they could use like three guys who, if you were to go get Schroeder, that takes ball handling duties away, or takes ball handling pressure off of Steph Curry. Cam Johnson is one of the best, just like 3-and-D, overall 3-and-D guys in the league. Same with Dorian Finney-Smith. The jump shot is here. It's, neither here nor there, but he's a really good defender, versatile defender who fits in what they do on that end of the floor. So like, I'd be intrigued to see if they are more pushy to try and like, bolster the roster top to bottom, as opposed to cashing in some of these young guys for a player, like you said, like Jimmy Butler, who has a player option, who is 35 years old, kind of on the back end of his career. I kind of lean towards the former being the better option for them. I don't know if you feel the same way or differently.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I think like, Jimmy, I think if it wasn't, and this is nothing against Jimmy specifically, I think that Jimmy makes sense because he's just a good player, all-star caliber player, and still capable of playing at such a high level when he's locked in. But I don't necessarily think it's like, man, this is a no-brainer. This fits perfectly. Like, you got to do whatever you can to make it happen. And like, it isn't that clear. And if it was, then maybe I would be more into it.